Hi, welcome back to School of Love, where we want to help you have parent-child relationships where you can talk about anything and especially about sex. And today I want to talk to you guys about my 7-month-old control specimen or reference model. I wanted to call it reference model because I don't want you guys to think I'm doing experiments on my kids. I'm not referring to that. And actually, I looked it up because I was trying to find the exact phrase that I'm looking for this podcast. And yeah, control specimen. I looked it up, and actually, it kind of felt right to what I wanted to refer to, because a control specimen is actually a sample kept unchanged to compare experimental results against, so like if you're doing different kinds of experiments on, I don't know, leaves, then there's the one leaf that you leave alone, right? So you know what, like, to compare the other leaves to. And so that also does not mean I'm experimenting with my other kids, although of course many things have happened in our relationship, much more than in comparison with my 7-month-old. And so what I really want to dive into here is my love for each of the kids. Okay. And so to start off with, I just want to really get into, like, how does it feel having a 7-month-old, right? A little baby. He is a roly-poly, sweet, cute baby, and we all love having him. So yeah, you might remember, or you might be yourself in a similar situation with a really sweet little child, right? Maybe a bit sleep deprived, but loving that baby comes pretty easily, right? Like, you cannot be angry at a 7-month-old or any kind of baby, really, right? Because they're innocent, they don't have any evil intentions. And yeah, children generally don't have evil intentions, but yeah, they do require a lot from us, but the love just really flows easily. And yeah, right now, our little baby, like, he had some really, yeah, intense teething just a week or two ago. And, you know, my husband and I, we feel like we have more or less of experience with babies and teething, but we were really challenged this time because he was nonstop crying and he had, like, all the symptoms, you name it. And we were also just unsure, like, should we, is this really teething? Because it feels like it's just so intense, much more than usual. But yeah, of course, the whole time, we were doing everything we could for him, and um, without any kind of resentment, that's just normal for parenting. And yeah, so you really push your limits for your children. And also just holding him sometimes, even in the night when I'm tired, sometimes I feel like my hands are just so charged up with love, and I'm giving that to him. I heard once that babies, they just feel it inside. I don't know if it was their spirit or their brains, but they just feel safe through our presence, their parents' presence. And yeah, it's just amazing, right? To be able to be that person that they just love being with, seeing. Like, I don't even have to do much for him to just love me. It's an amazing honor, right? And then kids get older and we get challenged in other ways, right? It's not teething anymore, but yeah, I have some examples. I've talked about spilling drinks before on this podcast, and I've gotten really good at being very forgiving with spilling drinks, but it seems to happen, like, in even more intense ways that are really just challenging. And the other day, one of my kids had a hot chocolate. I don't know if it was hot, but it was like a chocolate milk, and it was just such a silly mistake. And that's also the frustrating part, right? It could have been easily avoided, right? Maybe an adult would never have done such a thing. Although us adults, we do make mistakes like spilling milk or juice or whatever. Um, so anyway, he had his cup of chocolate milk, and then for whatever reason, his brother said something, and then it just spilled all over the sofa in our caravan and all over the floor. And, messes in homes, are already quite annoying. But in the caravan, it just feels like so much more work. It's like times 10 because, yeah, you need to find a place to wash the stuff and then to hang it up to dry. I don't want to go into it and bore you, but yeah, I just was feeling this heaviness after this mistake happened. And it took me, yeah, it just really tested my reaction to that. I can say I was not proud of my reaction, but it was okay. Like, um, I definitely learned a lot, and that helped me to react better than I would have probably 5 years ago. Um, anyway, so this happened, and you know, I was my human self reacting a little bit annoyed, to say the least. But yeah, I caught myself and I was like, okay, guys, I don't know about how you feel, but I'm feeling really um, just kind of burdened and annoyed through this whole situation. Let's shake it all out. So we like literally shook it out. Um, so that was my plus point there with my kids. Um, and yeah, then I scrubbed that thing. And anyway, so these things happen, right? And you never know what's going to happen with kids. It's pretty exciting. Um, and sometimes, it's small things like spilling milk, or it might also be, um, we kids get older and you give them more responsibilities, and sometimes they're not fulfilled, right? And so that can also be frustrating. Um, but yeah, it shouldn't change our love for them, right? So what I really want to get at here is like my little control specimen, my little reference model, as you will. He he's getting that love, it's flowing really freely to him no matter what. And so one great thing of having this baby in our family is for me to check in on myself and think, okay, am I letting that love flow just as freely with all of my kids, no matter what? Because that's that's what I want for me as a parent. I want to have absolute love for my kids. I want them to each feel like they are absolutely loved. They can make mistakes sometimes, and we all will learn from them together, but nothing should stop that love. And also me expressing that love. Yeah, especially because, I think these moments when these things happen, you know, maybe it's spilling milk, or maybe a responsibility was not fulfilled. What else could happen? Maybe, you know, okay, we've had lots of things happen in this caravan that have taken a lot of grace from my husband and I. Things have gotten broken, like shades for the windows, and it's painful because this was a big investment for our family. Um, but yeah, like I just have to think that when these things happen, it's in some ways it's kind of training for us as parents to learn God's grace and be able to give it in any situation. And it could be, building us up for a time when, we might need to give them even more grace, because when kids grow up, of course, we raise them the best to our ability, but things happen sometimes, and sometimes some accidents are bigger than others, and that means they'll really need our grace in those moments. You know, there was once something that happened between my husband and I. Okay, not just once, probably many times, Um, but then once there was a sort of accident. I don't want to get into details. Yeah, my husband just acted in such a, yeah, when I expected annoyance, my husband acted in such a supportive way, actually. And yeah, what I received instead was grace and support. And so I felt so loved in that moment. So when you feel like you did something and it's going to cause the other person annoyance or pain or anger, the first reaction is you want to hide. Um, but when you can really have courage and own up to that and share what happened, then yeah, getting grace from the other person, forgiveness or support or whatever it is, um, that is really true love. That is when you feel it. And that's when our kids also need it most, like when they do things that are, I don't want to say wrong, but when mishaps happen, that's when they need us the most. Yeah, we got to be their people. We got to have their back. And I want my kids to know that I'm a really forgiving mom. Not that they try to like use that or anything, but so they know that they can open up to me about whatever happens. I just want to be clear, I don't want to convince you to have a baby necessarily. However, if you're thinking about that anyway, I think it's an awesome thing to do and invest in. Uh, but yeah, my point is to really go back to when you felt you were at 100% love flow with your child. Maybe that was when they were a baby, or maybe it was last week when, you guys were both doing great. Or maybe it's now. And yeah, how can I get to that flow, right? Because that's my responsibility. It's not my child's. My child does this and that, but it should not be to earn my love. My love is always there at 100%. That's my goal. Yeah, we're human and it's not easy, but God is loving us at 100%. And I want to be like this transmissioner of giving that on to my child also as much as I can. As I was thinking about this, I was kind of thinking like it's like a pipe. And, if there's no buildup in the pipe, then it flows freely. And that's kind of like with my baby. And I think generally when we have babies, it just flows super freely straight into that human being, all the love, from me and from God. And somehow when they get bigger, I don't know, it just like somehow things get in the way. And I'm also still reflecting about why, like, you know, we know in our hearts that we totally love our kids, but things get in the way. Like, we start getting in our thoughts, we're less present, or, we think, okay, why didn't you do this? Or can you please listen to me? But there's still that same little baby inside, who is wanting to receive our love and is still, yeah, still learning in this world. So if there is buildup in your pipe, in your love pipe, then how can you clear it out? How can you really shake it through and make that love flow more easily? Yeah, sometimes it's amazing how like you can have a stressful time with your kids and then you look at pictures of them, especially when they were little, and then like it just is so uplifting. Like you feel so much compassion for those little human beings, and those are the same people that you are with now. And also, sometimes our love, like we are loving our kids 100%, but we maybe aren't expressing it as much as we could be, you know? Maybe we forget to show that. So, like, this is something we do on the boot camp is reflect on how much is my child feeling seen? How much are they feeling heard? And how much are they feeling valued? Because these are things that really are also a reference model to how much they're feeling loved. One thing I just wanted to also mention is the power of touch, because, babies, we know they need that. And so we do it automatically. This has also been interesting for me as a mother of a now 13-year-old and a 7-month-old and a few scattered in between. Yeah, because I'm not cuddling with those other kids as much as I with the baby. I mean, of course, baby, he doesn't walk yet, he doesn't crawl yet, so I tend to hold him more. And, I feel like this is fulfilling a need of his. The other kids, they don't ask for as much cuddling, although my 5-year-old does. Um, and then occasionally my 8-year-old. But the oldest two, they don't really ask for it much. But I know it's still a need. And, so I just wanted to share this one interesting thing we saw recently at a electricity museum. We're in France now, and yeah, we visited some friends that live close to Mulhouse, if I'm saying it right. Um, and there was an electricity museum there, and it was really cool. And at the end, there was a sort of, yeah, exhibition or like an interactive part, and there were two metal hands and a sort of circle thing, and it was showing like one person should hold one metal hand and another person the other, and then basically make a human chain so that these two metal hands are connected. And what it shows is that you complete the electrical circuit just through this human chain. So it's just cool to see how this electricity flows through our bodies and can even, yeah, light up a light bulb or whatever. And comparing that with just this physical touch that can also transmute love, I feel like it's actually such a powerful thing as a parent that we should never lose or forget. As a baby, it's an absolute need that we're holding them and touching them and cuddling them. And I think as kids get older, they do want that much less, but it's still a need. And it doesn't have to be like like me treating my 13-year-old like a 7-month-old. Not at all. I think she would not enjoy that. But still to express this parental touch in a way that, you know, with such a loving heart, I feel it, you really can sense it when someone touches you, even just on the shoulder with a loving heart or with even the slightest annoyance. I just wanted to put this out there in the universe for you to, for us all to think about and reflect on, like, how can we use this amazing physical body, right, for more love in our family. And so it might be hugs. My kids really love massages and, yeah, cuddles, especially for my 5-year-old. Yeah, I'm no scientist, but, I have heard on many occasions that oxytocin is a healing hormone, and oxytocin is released when we are in contact with another human being, right? When we hug or cuddle, when we're together with our spouse or hugging one of our kids. I heard even that when men are wrestling friendly, like a father and a son, that this also is a oxytocin release. So yeah, don't underestimate that. When my kids hurt themselves, you know, I used to I like sympathize a lot with them, like, oh my gosh, what happened? But now I feel like the best thing I can do when my kids get hurt is I just react as calmly as I can. I'm there for their support to give them oxytocin and cuddle as much as they want. And and then to check in, okay, so where does it hurt? Well, you know, can we do anything for that wound or, whatever ache you have? Yeah, because so much of how they feel is really reflecting on our reaction, isn't it? It's like if we freak out or jump to drastic conclusions, then that makes some sort of connection in their brain, like, oh my gosh, what if I did break that? So, yeah. Yeah. Just a side note, like, I never thought I would be having such a big age gap in my family because I I really wanted to avoid that because I grew up in a family of four kids and, you know, the oldest and youngest, I'm the oldest. We had an 8-year age gap. And of course, we're really great sisters, but I feel like I missed so much of my younger sister's life because I moved out of the house basically at 18 and she was only 10 years old. And that was such a deep regret of mine of missing like her whole teenagerhood, which is actually such a bonding time. And so I wanted to avoid that in my family. I wanted my kids to have close relationships. So I tried to have them close in age as possible. So after our fourth son was born, I really thought we were done. But then the wish for a new child grew amongst all of us. I was the last person to really be on board. After having a baby, I can see how much this can, within being intentional, it can also be a very connecting experience because my first initial worry was that having a baby, would take so much of my attention away from my other kids. And already my attention, which is so, I want to give undivided attention to each child. And I was already feeling like this is such a challenge, with so many kids. But that's still a challenge and I'm still working on it. I have to teach my kids not to interrupt each other and, let the other finish before you start talking. But yeah, what has been really amazing is that we are all enjoying the youngest growing up and watching that together. He's really been like the eye of a tornado drawing everybody in. So, yeah, but it takes intentionality to make it like that. So, yeah, intentionality, it's really the key. And yeah, when our kids are growing up, one thing that's been so good for us to connect and let the love flow freely is having honest conversations. We've been really intentional about having these conversations like, where do babies come from? How did mama and papa meet? And we've talked about, when are you too old to have babies? When are you too young to have babies? When you start becoming open with it and the kids know it's safe to talk about, then the questions start rolling out. And it's really wonderful, right? Because you want this in your family, not in other random places. So I really started opening up on these topics with my kids when I started working with School of Love, which was about 2 years ago now. And so, you know, I feel so grateful for that because I think it really opened up a key pipe in my relationship with especially my older daughters. Yeah. Because, these things become more important as they grow and as they enter puberty and go through puberty. So it's not just important when they go through puberty, it's already beforehand. They need to know what's coming. And so me having initiated these conversations without waiting for them to ask, it's really been, like I said, a really great, special kind of pipeline to let the love flow because, that's, of course, something that I have less of with my 7 month old, right? This, we're having a totally different kind of communication there. Whereas with my older girls, we're having different kinds of conversations that I feel are really connecting, but also really essential. Like, why are relationships, like boyfriend girlfriend relationships, risky before marriage? Why is it not helpful? Or how do we maintain good relationships with the opposite gender? This is something that I really needed to hear when I was growing up. And what are good media habits? This is something I bring up time and again in our family. And, it always needs to be tweaked a bit because we're all learning. And yeah, new things are happening in this digital world all the time. And also, maybe the question, like, what are those strange things in that shop? You know, kids see things and they can't unsee it. And, either they're stuck there with their curiosity or they can talk to us about it. And it's so much better if they can talk to us about it. We can find some kind of answer um, to make it processed. So I hope this podcast can really give you some takeaways and inspire you to bring up these really great conversations in your own life. I mean, our kids are all at different stages. Maybe they're 6 months old, maybe they're 3 or 5, 10, 13. There's there's so many different stages, right? But let's keep that love flowing at 100% and always be forgiving, give them grace, and maybe we as parents need to relate back to when we really felt that 100% for our kids, and maybe we need to reflect in us. Why did I feel I could give my love 100% then and not now? Like, what is it in me that has changed, right? Because our child is still growing and actually God loves them 100%. So why can't I give that, right? And then once again, yeah, these conversations, although they hit differently at every age, they're still important and they're so connecting. And, I feel like for my 7 month old, it's really just being with him, giving him the cuddles, when he blabbers his cute little, like, he's starting to say nine somehow, the German word for no. I don't know how that can be his first word. I think it's not intentional yet. Let's see. But yeah, just show him listening, and engage with him. That's what I feel is important right now. And then, with my other kids, it's really talking about biology, about where do babies come from, and yeah, how that's God's creation. How do we take care of our bodies? And of course, media habits. And, for my older kids, then we get into more deep things, especially about relationships and romance. What is healthy romance? And while this is all happening, the true foundation and like visual lesson is my husband and I, and how we are treating each other, how we are living up to what we say. Um, so that's just an extra motivation, to really keep working on our marriage the whole time, which is good for me, good for him, good for the whole family. It's all good. It's not just good, it's actually epic. This is really amazing stuff. And yeah, God created families like this for a reason. And, I was just thinking today, man and woman, why like that? Because, you know, there are some interesting organisms that are not separated, male and female, like a slug, for example. I don't want to live a slug life. And I feel like God created us. I mean, true parents might give you probably a whole wonderful explanation, but I'm just sharing what I was thinking today. It's like realizing I don't have all the answers myself. I need to work with this other side of the universe that I do not know because I cannot think like a man. And so we need to work together. And through that synergy, actually, so much more happens, right? So much more blessing, excitement, realizations. Sometimes I do love to reflect a lot and I think and think and think, and it is great. But then sometimes I do get stuck and I feel like, okay, it's time to talk to my husband. And new things come out of that, and usually solutions. So, yeah, have great conversations, you guys. Keep those pipes flowing strong, your love flow to your children. And yes, I hope you enjoyed this podcast and see you next time.